Okay, now let us come to the part which is very important for us, that how we go on to write the answer. Now, as I discussed that in introduction we usually have one paragraph, and that is the maximum which is required, right? But then there are certain things which you should understand about the introduction. The introduction need to introduce the concept or the notion, because this is going to be very important, that if you are introducing, because look, something has been asked, so irrespective of the fact whatever has been asked, you need to first introduce the concept, or you need to tell that what exactly the reader is expecting from that answer, right? So introducing the concept is going to be very important. You should always think it from this perspective, that suppose if you encounter a layman, he is an educated layman. What does it mean? That he or she may not be the expert of a subject area, but he understands things. So you need to introduce that concept, right? So once you introduce that concept, so that is either the part of the introduction. Sometimes you also need to be very clear. You need to clarify what is the intention or the purpose of writing this answer, because you need to make the reader aware of this fact, that what he or she is going to expect in the part to follow, right? So that is also something which you need to bring. So the intention or the purpose needs to be clarified. That is the idea. And last but not the least, try to be very clear and very precise in your introduction. And if possible, you can make the introduction very interesting as well. Because if you write something which makes me feel that, okay, I need to read the answer. Because look, I may share with you, many teachers do not love to read the answers of students after reading the first part of the answer, precisely because there is nothing interesting, or nobody is making you and this is everywhere. It's not only about university or college education or school education. It is also found in competitive examinations. It is also found in any international arena as well, that if you are not making your answer interesting, you will go for a very average marking or even below average marking, which will not serve your purpose. But if you are making your introduction interesting, the teacher, the examiner, the evaluator is forced to read your answer. That makes a point very clear, and then the person also develops this idea that, look, this person has written a very good answer at the first go, so he may very favorably say judge you in the later part of the question paper as well. So you need to put something very interesting, so that the person finds it like, okay, now I am inquisitive to write the answer, read the answer, right? So those things you need to bring upon. So try to make something very interesting over here as well. Now let us come to the main body, because this is the place from where you actually score most of the marks. Now the first thing, as we already discussed, that the main body is having paragraphs usually. Like if it is a 100-word question, then you may not divide it, because your introduction will have one paragraph, say 25 words. Your conclusion will also have one paragraph, say 25 words. So you are left with 50 words. So maybe you can make one single paragraph for that. But that also can be divided into two paragraphs. But it depends. But usually 150 words, 200 words, 250 words, 300 words, 600 words, 500 to 600 words, or even 1000 words will have a lot of paragraphs, right? So try to write it in paragraphs. The second thing is that you need to understand that there has to be a transformation from one paragraph to another paragraph. You cannot just write one paragraph and then you write the other paragraph and there is absolutely no linkage in between. So that transformation has to be there, because you are writing something in the paragraph part, say in the first paragraph, and then in the last line you write that, okay, from here we will explain, or we will try to understand this. Now that makes the justification for the next paragraph. So those things you have to bring. So that is like what we call as the transformation. Then also, sometimes students do not divide the paragraphs properly. I'm not saying that it will not fetch you marks and this and that, but that division also says that you have a very rational mind, or you have made a rough draft of your answer. Because look, if you start with the explanation of something, so you need to complete it. Or you may divide it, when you can also write like that, okay, in a couple of paragraphs we will understand this concept, right? Or there are two things which we need to understand. So the first thing has been explained in the first paragraph, the second thing has been explained in the second paragraph. So something like that. But this division of paragraphs is very important. Then try to include facts, figures, quotes, sayings, so many things, because that also adds to your answer. Do not try to put or fool a teacher. Nowadays, as you can use internet, anybody else can also use internet. Like you, beforehand I have heard that a lot of people used to write that, okay, this person has written that, or that person has said that. Now who in this world will go on to check all these things? And moreover, people will say that, okay, suppose somebody is claiming that somebody has said that or somebody has said that, so maybe he's right, and the benefit of doubt should go to the student. Nowadays anybody can check. Anybody can check that, okay, whether this person has said anything like that, or is it so popular that it can be included over here, and so on. So do not try to fool, but if you know genuinely that there is something which you can include, so please include. There is absolutely no problem. So facts, figures, quotations, sayings, and all these things help the answer. Diagrams, sometimes you also draw some diagrams to explain, a brief sketch of something can also help. Then you need to have claims in your answers, and you need to provide proper justifications. Like sometimes in the question only, you will find that the question has been given, say, discuss and this and that, and then they will write at the end of the question, justify your claim or state your reasons. So that is also something like this. So every answer need to have your own claim and the justifications, right? The rational justifications of those things has to follow with those claims. So those things also make the answer beautiful. Those things also makes the answer more affirmative by nature. Then with answer writing, as I find, students do not have a flow which is without turbulence, right? Because they keep moving here and there. They are writing something, then they go back, then they come forward or something like that. Allow me to say that this is like a pattern of a South Indian movie, right? What happens in a South Indian movie? The movie starts somewhere, in future. Then it goes to the past. Then it comes to the present again. Then it goes to the future. Then again, maybe some dream sequence can go here and there and this and that. Maybe that is very interesting. Maybe that is the way a lot of movies are made. The public or the viewer is very interested in those things, but not academically. This is the idea. In academics, you have to have a very free flow and without any turbulence. It should start from the beginning and it should go to the end, right? You cannot move like this. So this kind of structure is not followed in academics. Then why I was calling that answer writing is not an art only, it's a science, it's a skill, because you need to give arguments, right? And you must know what are arguments, right? That you have to bring some premises, and from that the conclusion must follow, and it should be a valid argument, or it should be a strong argument, right? So academics is not, or say answer writing is not only like beautiful words, beautiful handwriting. Okay, allow me to also say a few things about handwriting. What do you think? That good handwriting helps, or good handwriting gets you more marks? I will say bad handwriting or inability of an examiner to read your answers, because your answers are so in such a way written that you do not understand whether it is calligraphy or whether it is words expressed in some language and so on, right? So that can create a problem. A good handwriting, say for most of the teachers it may matter, but many of the teachers will also say that good handwriting will not give you very good marks, but bad handwriting will definitely take away your marks. So you should at least have a legible handwriting, right? Because a legible handwriting is something which is required, because if I can read the answer, right? So I understand what you are trying to say. But if you are writing it in a way that I cannot read it properly, so irrespective of the fact that even if I'm making sense, but I will not be able to judge you properly. Anyways, so the nature of argument is going to be very important. So you need to make very good premises and you need to come out with good conclusions, and it has to be a good argument, right? So if it's a valid argument, it's even better. If it is a strong argument, good. And if it is a sound argument, that it's amazing. I hope that you understand the difference between a sound argument, a valid argument, and a strong argument, right? And last but not the least, you need to establish your point. Look, I can say something. I can always say that, look, this is the case. Anybody can say that. But if I can establish that as well, then it makes sense. Then it is academic by nature. So you need to understand that apart from, say, claiming, justifying, you also need to establish it properly. Because unless you are establishing it properly, it will not make sense. So that these are a few things which you should understand about the introduction and the main body. But we will also quickly understand that what are the requirements of the conclusion. Now, conclusion requirements are again not much. Again, there will be a single para. So only one para, as we know that this is something which is the case, or this is the thing which should be there. Then there should be a conclusion marker. What is a conclusion marker? Like thus, therefore, from the above, it is clear that, right? Or it is plain from the above. From the above, it is established. You know, expressions like these are conclusion markers. Do not go for very expressions which are not very well taken. That, okay, in the end, I will like to conclude that. You know, these kind of expressions do not give very good marks, or do not fetch very good marks, because they also very clearly say that you do not have a proper way of expressing. So if you want to go for a very standard one, it can be thus, therefore, because they are also very simple, and they are not something which will take away your marks. But if you say, in the end, I will like to conclude, and so on, so these expressions do not give you very good marks. So refrain from or abstain from using those kind of expressions. Another you can use from the above, it is clear, right? Or the above discussion forces us to understand, right? So all these things can be conclusion markers. There can be a lot of conclusion markers, and in fact there are very good way of writing answers. But as I told you, that you need to write a very formal answer and a very basic answer. So if you are writing even simpler things like these, this will do your task, or this will say help your task. So this conclusion marker is important. And last but not the least, that it has to be short and precise. So if you are writing a very short and precise conclusion, then it will always be adjudged better. Because sometimes I started reading the answer, I got the introduction and I found it very interesting. Then I started reading the main body and I found that, okay, you have a point and you are making it quite good, and you are explaining it, because it's a long answer, so you are explaining it, giving more justifications and this and that. So I have an idea that, okay, fine. So what I will do is I will quickly go to the conclusion, try to see whether whatever you are saying is something which you have also written in the conclusion, and you say pinpoint accurate that this is what I wanted to write, and I will say, okay, this guy is making the point very clear, so I will give you the marks. So that idea that you have to be very clear here has to come very naturally to you. That irrespective of the fact that maybe you have gone a little bit, you have digressed from the topic in your main body or something, but if you write your conclusion clean and clear, so it gives a very good say impression to the examiner, and he or she awards you good marks. Now let us come to the part where we will be talking about certain general tips, and this is going to be the last part of answer writing. The first thing, as I already discussed, is that we need to write legibly. A good handwriting may not fetch you bad marks or good marks, but definitely bad handwriting does, right? So avoid bad handwriting and things like that, that you are not writing legibly, I cannot read it properly, so it is not going to help our cause. The second thing is that you need to provide examples and analogies, because unless you provide examples and analogies, it does not make sense, or your expression gets a different dimension altogether when you are explaining things with the help of examples and analogies. Because if you can connect well, so it also clarifies that your idea or your understanding is very good, right? But if if you cannot give examples, or if you cannot come out with analogies, so it is also a I will say a serious say it is a shortcoming in your answer writing skills. So try to come out with examples and analogies. The next thing is that you need to highlight keywords and phrases. Many students use different color pens and so on. In fact, they use a lot of color pens to write answers. Usually in school days, and say missionary schools will teach you all these things. Private schools and all these, bracket, unbracket, kind of big schools teach you that you need to highlight it properly. So people are using highlighter, or they are using 4 or 5 color pens and this and that. No need to do that. You just need to you can use a couple of pens, say a black and a blue, and for so if you need to highlight a word or an expression, you can just use the black, and the rest of the answer can be written in blue. One thing is that. Or you can just put an underline, right? That can also help. In fact, people who have very good handwritings and who have an understanding of calligraphy as well, they just slant it properly, like that is the understanding of an italic, right? So they are writing it like this, and once they want to say highlight something, so they slant it, so that goes like this. So that also highlights the thing, because you need to make your examiner read the best lines or the important things. Because if you have seen how a person checks a copy, like if you see me, or if you see any examiner, how he checks a copy, he or she, so he sees like this, because they are trying to search for the points. If you are clearly highlighting them, so it is easier for the person. And if you will also help your examiner go through your answer quickly and properly, then he or she will also give you more marks, right? So the idea is to highlight the keywords and phrases. Then you also need to understand that this chronology and preferences is a very important thing. Usually our first answer is our best answer. That is the idea. So nowadays, many a times in many of the types of examination, it is not possible, because there are spaces provided for the questions and the answers, and you need to write the answer in that space only, that provided space only. So in that, there is absolutely no thing. But suppose if there is a conventional examination going on, and you have all the freedom to write the first answer as the fifth answer, right? And the whatever way you want to follow. Now the idea is that since you know that you have to write, say 250 words, and how much space it is going to take, so maybe 1 page more for this, and you can, in fact, this is just a suggestion, it may not be followed exactly, but you can leave spaces so that you maintain the chronology. Because if you maintain the chronology, the teacher or the examiner again thinks that it's not the case that this is his best answer or that is his worst answer, because he has maintained the chronology. So the preferences is that you can write your best answer, say the fifth answer, at the 5th page or the 7th page, but let it be on the 5th page or the 7th page, and the first page can have the first answer. So those small things, if you bring or if you keep it in mind, so your answer sheet looks better, your answer sheet is evaluated properly, and you get your desired marks. You need to keep on reading and revising. Like you have written a paragraph and you are writing the second paragraph, maybe you have left something in between, so you keep on reading the above paragraph as well, that I missed something that I may need to include in this paragraph, or I may say required to say reform a paragraph so that I can bring that notion which I have missed. So reading and revising helps. So it's not only that you need you have written the answer and you are revising it, but you need to read and revise while you are going through. So that is also an art which you can develop, and the more you will practice, you will see that these type of things you develop on your own. You have your own heuristic way of doing, like, okay, I will read like this and I will do like this and so on, but that helps. That is the thing. This is a very important thing, because this will not help you only to complete your answers and question paper, but also will help because look, there are some examiners who do not feel like that they should students should write more. Like, suppose there is a 200-word answers requirement, okay, and the examiner feels like that, okay, you have written more than 200, right? So he feels like that, okay, how will I calculate? I will calculate that, okay, how many lines he has written. Okay, so suppose you have written 20 lines, okay, and in every line there is around 15 words. So he will calculate and he will see that, oh, you have written 15 words and 20 lines, so it will make somewhere around 300 words. Okay, so I will cut the last paragraph. Okay, so I will cut this paragraph and see that how much marks he gets over here. So even if you have written a good answer of 200 words and say it was of 10 marks, if the examiner would have taken this also into consideration, but since you have gone on the higher side and you have crossed the word limit, so he cut say a couple of paragraphs of yours and made it 200 words, and out of this you only make 4 or even 3 marks. So even if you would have got a 7 or an 8, but since your conclusion is missing, so you get 4 or 3, and that hampers a lot. That hampers your scores, that hampers your chances of clearing something and so on. So these kind of things you should not do, right? So stick to the word limit. You write say 10%, 5 to 10% less, nobody will care. If you write 5 to 10% more also, I will think so that nobody will care. But if you go on to write more, or if you write less, both the things will not have very good impact on your score. Then you need to plan and manage the time and space. So as you have seen, the chronology and the preference is important. Similarly, as I told you, that you need to first make a rough draft, and you need to also plan the space, right? Because if you are jumbling the questions a lot, so this examiner has a very clear idea that, okay, you are not following the chronology, and because of that your initial answers will be better and your later answers will be worse, and it will get even worse. So that psychology should not come to the mind of the examiner, and because of that you need to plan properly, right? Enumerations is very important, because many a times we are naming not the things not properly, or we are not numbering them properly. So numbering and naming and say putting it as like figure 1 or figure 2, and then you can always write that from figure 1 and figure 2 this can be established and so on, right? So these things you need to bring upon, and you need to make your answers also very scientific by nature, right? It is not only art, it is not only beautification, but it is also the argumentation, it is also the science, it is also the skill which you have to develop. Look, there is also a need for spelling and its consistency. First thing, do not make a lot of spelling mistakes. Maybe a couple of spelling mistakes, teachers will find that, okay, it's not a problem. Many people make these common spelling mistakes. But if you are continuously making spelling mistakes, then it's not going to be good. Or it's not a spelling mistake, but you have not completely understood the notion. Like I find in our students that they do not understand the difference between preposition and proposition, and they will write it as preposition when they are talking about statements which are propositions, right? So if those kind of mistakes are done or are found in the answer sheet, so no teacher is going to pardon you. No logic teacher is going to pardon you for writing proposition as prepositions, right? Even if it's a common mistake. So these spelling mistakes are certain things which you should keep in mind, that you should not do it. Second thing, since we still are not having a very clear idea that whether we should follow the British English or we should follow the American English, So we make a lot of spelling mistakes, or a lot of inconsistencies found in our spellings. We may choose to write color as color or colour, but you need to follow it consistently. If you are writing at one place color and another place colour, then the examiner will not take it properly. It's also regarding the pronunciations, because if we are using one kind of pronunciation at one place and another kind of pronunciation at another place, and we are speaking, so it also, because I will be soon also launching a module on public speaking, or in fact normal academic speaking, or how to present. So in that also it is very important that you should follow consistently one way of pronouncing things or one way of spelling things, right? So that is going to be important. So follow consistently whichever, whether you are using the American way or whether you are using the English way, the British English way. So do it, but follow it consistently. Then also regarding grammar and fallacies, do not make much of grammatical mistakes, because okay, since English may not be the first language of ours or may not be even the second language of ours, so we find a little bit of difficulty in expressing. But then not much of grammatical mistakes are permissible. Second thing is that you should not have a mistake in your argument. Like if you are writing something like P implies Q, right? And then you write Q and therefore P. So it is a fallacy, right? And it is something, it is a mistake in reasoning which you should not do. If it rains, then the ground is wet. Since the ground is wet, therefore it has rained. And you think that you have made a valiant attempt in expressing and establishing your point, but you have faltered, right? So these kind of things, or these small things, you should not do. And if you do, then it is going to be a problematic thing, or else answer writing is not going to be say a problem for you if you know all these things and if you follow all these things. And look, does not matter what, you need to practice, right? So you need to practice a little bit, and when it comes on the D-Day, you need to perform as well. So prepare, practice and perform.